The bell rings for a 7th time this season of who is top of the hill class and who has been knocked off of the school standards. It's Knockhill, grades and predictions.
Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast. We are of course back once again and we're in the same room this time. Completely different room to normal, so we hope this goes nice and smoothly.
Early signs are not good, but we'll get through it.
But yeah, we're going to catch you up from Knockhill weekend, which we were of course at. If you haven't gone and watched the review of the weekend, go and watch that before you watch this, and we'll catch you up with some grades. We'll get first of all into our awards for the weekend though.
Okay.
Because we missed them out in the review.
Blindsided me there because we've not got them up in front of me.
I know.
Thanks for that.
We'll get to the awards. So obviously we have 4 awards for the weekend. We've got our driver of the weekend, villain, surprise good, and surprise bad. Do you want to start?
Now I've got the information in front of me. Thanks for that fantastic piece of blindsiding. I'm going to go slightly out there for my driver of the weekend. It's going to cause a few eyebrow raises perhaps, but I'm going Stephen Jelly.
Okay.
Didn't have the best run of it in qualifying, to be fair, but then race 1, he got the tyre changed at the right time.
Yes.
He kept his head where others didn't really get involved in any instance in the difficult conditions, and finished on the road at least in a podium place. No, he didn't.
Not quite.
4th.
Inherited.
No, he then lost it to Collard.
Yeah, inherited and then lost it again.
But he certainly, he finished well. In race 3, he finished 3rd.
Yeah.
Fairly comfortably, to be honest with you, in his 3rd position. Obviously, he wasn't going to keep up with Hill and Sutton, but they're in a different stratosphere in terms of their pace. But he kept 3rd fairly simply. And then in race 3, he was going pretty well, to be fair, only opening a couple of laps in difficult conditions. And then Hill happened.
Something Jake Hill happened, yeah. It was
He was knocked by Hill.
Oh dear. It was an optimistic move. And as you say, I think Jelly would have finished fairly well if it wasn't for that.
Yeah, top 6.
So yeah, one of Jelly's good weekends, which we normally find 1 or 2 out of throughout the year.
Jelly has outscored this weekend, I think combined, Turkerton, Camish, Rowbottom and Morgan.
Yeah.
So good weekend for Jelly. That's why he's my driver of the weekend.
That's fair enough. Well, my driver of the weekend is going to be a local lad. It's going to be Ronan Pearson. I think his performance this weekend showed maturity, and it took a little bit of luck along the way, and he was very unlucky at the end of the day to miss out on his first podium of the year, with team orders being impacted with that, with Ingram trying to go for a title, which I know you don't like, but
it's the right decision.
It is the right decision.
We discussed that on the other pod, but yeah.
But his performance all weekend, he knew when to make that change onto the wet tyres. He optimised that and then capitalised on it in race 2. And yeah, it's a really good weekend. And taking home Jack's ears will just be a bonus on top of that.
Agreed. Who is your villain of the weekend?
I'm split this weekend on the villain.
James McAvoy.
Yeah. I'm going to go for Turkington and Camish. They both had probably equally bad weekends, which...
Are you finally going to admit that Camish is out of the championship hunt?
Yeah, I think both of them are now. And it really summed it up when they came together in race 2, whether by hook or by crook. Turkington finished in the barrier, Camish finished with a broken car, and they both didn't finish with very many points at all this weekend.
No, both out the title race. Bold move, bold call from you, but I think you are finally right. I've gone for Hyundai and the ride height failure. Now, I say normally I'm banging my drum and getting my stepladder out to board my high horse. However, on this occasion, it seems that the fault is with Hyundai. The 2 cars got done for it. Appears they didn't raise the ride height as part of the pit stops. Yeah, it's poor. At this stage of the season, it's possibly cost Tom Ingram the title. So you've got, having already had a car disqualified earlier in the year, you'd have thought they'd be slightly more hot on it, and they weren't. And I think as a team, they've got to look at this and really learn for this for future wet dry races that maybe it is worth losing a couple of extra minutes in the pit stop, because otherwise the impact could be you lose you exclude from the race. And I have to say, whilst climbing aboard my high horse, I do think that they should scrutiny every car on the grid in these situations. I think it's ludicrous that only the top 3 do get done.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to say that Andrew Watson wouldn't have failed a ride height test. Obviously, they didn't test him, so he's second, so he's fine. But it makes you wonder, would Pearson have failed the ride height test? Would Halstead have failed the ride height test?
Yeah, and if you're Chiltern looking to finish third, do you then finish fourth just so you can then possibly regain the podium? There are
Yeah.
so many different connotations, and I think we've both certainly learned a lot this weekend about
Oh,
ride
absolutely.
height and how the wet tyres are a smaller circumference and all the changes that go along with that. So it'll be interesting to see if we get any further wet weekends this year.
Absolutely. Right, my surprise good for the weekend is Ricky Collard.
Hey,
The best performing Toyota by a mile this
Oh, yeah.
weekend, and probably this season, if we're being honest about things.
Yep.
Kept his head just about in the conditions. Yes, got stuck into some hard, aggressive racing, and you might argue he might have finished slightly higher. He was a bit more conservative, but on the flip side, he got a podium. He got 3 top 10 finishes.
Yep.
That's a good weekend from Collard.
Yeah, I think the only downside was that lock up in race two, turn three, where he could have made the most of the situation. Probably might have ended up with a podium in that race as well, but unfortunately dropped back slightly. My surprise good of the weekend is actually Cook. With the pace that he showed in qualifying, he was the only one to really get anywhere near the pace of Sutton this weekend. And in race two, he fought his way through, and then in race three, once again in the wet conditions, he made a big, bold charge and managed to get second in that race. And this is the Cook we kind of need to see from the start of the season if he's going to have any chance of winning the championship.
Bit of a mistake, in my view, that he made in race 1 with Sutton.
Yeah.
But
I mean, those conditions on the wrong tyre, that can happen to absolutely anyone. We saw Sutton go off under the safety car in those conditions. So, yeah, he's a little bit unlucky with that. But you can find grip in one part of the circuit and then millimetres, inches beside that, there'll be none at all. So
fair enough. Who's your villain of the weekend?
You mentioned the Toyotas didn't do particularly well.
Collard
did, yeah, best of them, but Butcher really butchered the weekend. For a driver at his home circuit to have so much knowledge and understanding of the conditions that you can have at Knockhill and then score next to no points in a weekend like we've had, he really should be a driver that's capitalising.
He put an S before laughter and turned it to slaughter. I've been waiting for that joke all year. It's difficult to disagree fully with you. It's not been a good season for Butcher at all. And this was a round you would have earmarked as one that he would have done well at and hasn't delivered. I'm going Napa, which is a bold call, but let me defend it.
Okay, go on then.
Okay. Now, I know if your auntie had testicles, she'd be your uncle.
Yes.
But if you took Sutton out, and take Sutton as red, because we know he's brilliant. We know he's brilliant. Yeah. They've been outscored, I think, by practically every other team this weekend.
Okay.
Including Hart.
Yeah.
Rowbottom has finished no races in the points. I think he's only finished 1 race on the road, and even then it was right down the back.
Yep.
Camish mucked up qualifying. Wasn't particularly good in the other races, particularly.
Yeah.
Didn't really
crash
make
in race 2 and
didn't really make any progress in race 3. Osborne was, I think he got 1 point to finish this weekend, about where you'd expect him to be, but quite off the pace you consider the circumstances of the actual racing.
Yes.
That's a really bad weekend by Napa. When you put it like that, Camish is now out of the title race. You'd argue that Osborne's probably at the Jack Sears race.
Yeah.
So that's 2 championships ended this weekend. And Rowbottom, who isn't a slouch and is a decent driver, has come away with absolutely nothing this weekend. It's not been good for Napa. And also to have it down to reliability, particularly Rowbottom's car, for a team that is normally so slick and so on the ball and so mechanically sound, a little bit of concern.
Yeah, I was going to say there is that small caveat of the mechanical issues that Rowbottom had this weekend. But yeah, Camish's performance was well below par, hence him being one of my villains this weekend. So I can kind of understand where you're coming from, but you've also got to take into something as account.
But you do, but Sutton will keep saying on this car, you give him a chariot of square wheels, he'll find a way to drag it to the podium.
Yeah.
He is a freak when it comes to this sport. He's comfortably top 3 I've ever seen. Comfortably. Probably the best natural talent I've ever seen in the sport.
Yeah, quite possibly. And I think what he'll go on to achieve within the sport will probably go on to back that up.
Yeah, if he's interested, he'll break every record. Which is why I say you've got to take him out of it to a degree.
Yeah.
And then look at what's left at Napa, and I don't think it's been a very good weekend at all.
Okay, that's fair enough. Well, we'll get on to the driver grades now then. And take you through how each driver performed this weekend. Now, we will start with Ash Sutton, the man you have just mentioned with this weekend, and you wanted to give him an A star first of all, didn't you?
I think you're ridiculous for not giving him an A star, to be honest with you. And it's an A star. He took pole. He lost it on the first race. Okay, you could say he didn't come in, but then he took the gamble not coming in. And to be fair, he drove on the wrong tyre solidly for several laps, and he still finished sixth.
Yes, he did.
Having pitted about 3 laps remaining of the race.
He did. I think it fell nicely for him with the safety car.
But it fell nicely for everybody.
But I do think he stayed out too long, and if he'd made the decision at the right time, then he could have quite easily have won that race 2, and race 3 if he really wanted to this weekend. And I think that's just where he misses out on the A star for me.
My argument back on that would be that he came into the weekend with a 6-point lead and he's left it with an over 30-point lead.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily down to him.
But you've got to drive your own race, and he's made the most of this weekend as far as he can.
Yeah.
I think it's harsh to rule people or to downgrade people for race 1 where you have to make effectively a 50-50 call. I mean, Ingram was saying that his team was asking what to do, and he's saying that you've got to make the call for me. I can't make this call. So I think it's harsh to downgrade drivers on the fact that they stayed out a bit too long. He rolled the dice, and ultimately, instead of rolling a 1, he rolled a 3. It's.
But he could have also ended up in the wall. Yes, I know he didn't, but that was the risk he was taking when he probably didn't need to take it.
But if the rain had lessened up, he would have stayed out at the right time and been laughing all the way to the finish line. Yeah. So A is fine. I think A star is better, but what do you think?
Yes, A star is better than an A.
What do you guys think? Maybe you can break deadlock for us in the comments below. Moving on to Dan Camish, it's D for Dan.
Dreadful weekend.
D for the title is over.
Oh God! Don't start with those again. As I said, it's a bad weekend for him. He's now out of the title hunt, and it will be a weekend that he might look back on and go, "Yeah, that's those mistakes are really going to cost me throughout a season."
Quality set the tone. Unfortunately, you qualify that far down the grid, you don't get the chaos of race 1.
Yeah,
someone like Knockhill, well, that's always a possibility.
Oh yeah, very much so.
You pay the price, unfortunately. Rowbottom, I fought really hard for this with you, and I'm going to justify it. So misses out the top 10 shootout, gets 13th. Yeah, that's about fine. He's missed out to people that you can quite easily interchange with on not a massive margin.
Yeah.
You can't have everyone in top 10.
No.
So fine. Race 1, car breaks down the way to the grid. What can you do? That's not a driver error. That's car breaking down the way to the grid.
Yeah.
Race 2, car breaks down again, and he's unable to make any progress through the field. Race 3, possibly a car issue, possibly a driver error, but it's difficult to know because the replays don't exist to show us anything.
Yeah, the replays don't show anything. All we know is that when he came past us a couple of laps into the race, there was a whole load of grass in the front end of the car.
Yeah.
Yes, the conditions were awful for race 3, and it would be quite easy to run off the track through a chicane or something like that,
or be bumped off the track.
Yes,
because we don't know the circumstances. I don't think it's fair to grade him on that. So for me, it's got to be you. There's not enough data to grade him.
Yeah, that's fair.
Wow. Osborne.
He's. I'm going to use this word again. I used it last season. He's become very mediocre in terms of the Jack Sears drivers.
Yes.
And for a driver in the team that he's in, with the support network that he has around him, with the driver experience that he can rely upon, he should be doing a hell of a lot better.
I agree with you, and I think that he should be winning the Jack Sears and should be winning it by a bit of a margin. And the fact that he's being outshone in the Jack Sears by 3 rookies and a relative rookie tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, if he is still there next season, which probably will be with his dad owning part of the team, then I think we're going to be looking very, very harshly upon him. Obviously, he can't win Jack Sears next year. Now he's had a podium. And the driver talent really is struggling to show through.
There's glimpses, but those glimpses were not shown this weekend, so it's a D for Osborne. Then we have Tom Ingram.
His first non-B of the year.
Yeah, it was a difficult weekend for Ingram. Qualified okay. Race 1, obviously, you probably give him an A star because he got the call on tyres right, but obviously fails the ride height. Not necessarily his fault, but
I do wonder who makes the decision, whether it's the driver to make the decision or whether I assume it must come down to the engineer to go, yes, we need to raise the ride height. So, yeah, he's made the decision at the right time, or his engineer's made the decision at the right time, but it hasn't paid off because you then get disqualified at the end of the race.
Yeah, he did quite well in race 2 to
did.
fight back for him. You wanted to give him a B, and I've got to argue why it's a C.
Yeah.
Race 2, good recovery drive. You kind of expect from Ingram in the car.
Yeah.
Um,
Followed Cook through.
And he finished in front of practically everyone you'd expect him to.
Yeah.
If you want to use that age-old adage. Race 3, he only gets a podium because of who's in front of him. If it's not Pearson in third, he doesn't get a podium. It's as simple as that.
No,
Yeah.
I understand that.
And because of that, that's why I'm saying a C, because he has come away with a podium, but should have come away with no podium. Any other circumstance, he's not getting a podium this weekend.
No.
Obviously, if he keeps the win in race 1, different story. We're looking at a completely different complexion, because he probably wins race 2.
Yeah.
Probably. Or he's certainly on the podium or thereabouts in race 2. And he's in with a good shout for race 3 high finish. But he doesn't, and therefore he gets a podium by virtue of robbing the local boy of one, which I'm still bitter about. But
and I think what secures this C more so is the fact that the leading championship's now gone out to 37 points.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, teammate Tom Ingram then. Teammate of Tom Ingram, Tom Chilton.
Smooth, mate. A D for Chilton this weekend. He qualified well. He got into the top 10 shootout and made, again, the right call on coming in for tyres at the right time. However, ride heights wasn't changed. He was disqualified from that. And then race 2 and race 3, the car seemed to lack any speed at all. He didn't really make up any positions. In race 3, he was flagging down with the BMWs, which is when you know your weekend's going bad in the wet.
Yeah. Particularly given that race 3 are conditions that Tom Chilton usually thrives in.
Oh, yeah.
And he did not thrive in. It's got to be a D. Although he's unlucky to lose the podium, cut and paste, really, what we've said about Ingram and ride height. Ronan Pearson is the star of the show for Team Accelerate this weekend. He's got an A. Jack Sears winner overall. Should have had a podium overall. 3 top 10 finishes. Strong in the Jack Sears, as I say.
Yeah.
Probably out of the Jack Sears hunt overall, I think, but still a good showing. His best weekend in the touring cars by a country mile.
Yeah, certainly. Completely agree on that one. Halstead, it was showing signs of a better weekend from Halstead. One, he wasn't racing last this weekend. I don't think at any real point. He scored points in race 1 because he made the decision at the right sort of time and made the most of that as well.
Yep.
However, race 3 does end up in a barrier.
Well, also, you could argue...
In very difficult conditions, he's locked up, gone straight on his own.
You could argue he scores points in race 1 because 2 of his teammates get disqualified up the road.
Yeah, that is true as well.
But he has scored points.
Yes, which is an upturn for him, and it's something that he needs to be aiming towards, I think, for the rest of the season.
Race 3 is a silly error, but understandable given the conditions. But yeah, Colin Turkington then. Oh dear, D for dear. It's all over for me, Sam. He's not in the championship fight anymore.
No, and I think what really secured that was the incident with Camish in race 2 and him ending up backwards in the barriers and then taking the risk on the grid, as you said at the time, might have been a good risk until the heavens absolutely opened to go on that soft tyre. And the BMWs really struggle in the wet. I'm
kind of disappointed we got the rain when we did, because I would have liked to have seen what Colin could have done on the track on those, what would have been the wrong tyre. But I think it would have been a bold choice and one he had to take. But ultimately, the car lacks any form of pace in the wet. I do wonder if he went and started the wet race on wet tyres with a dry setup, because obviously with the dry tyres on,
it's possible.
Did they have chance to change the setup fully? Probably not. But even so, even in race 2 where it was dry, he still wasn't doing that. When he had his incident with Camish, he still wasn't that high up the field.
No, it's not like we're saying he was lower end of the points.
Yeah, it's not that. Yeah, he was not like they were saying he was bumped off when he was 4th. You know, he was lower end of the points.
Yeah.
So,
battling with Pearson for most of the weekend.
Patterson as well, at points.
Yeah.
So yeah, poor from Colin and out the race. Hill gets a B from us this weekend. Took a race, 2 race wins, one by fortune, but he still did pretty well in those conditions in race 1. Race 2, Paul O'Neill reckons it's the greatest Jake Hill win ever. I'm not sure I'm subscribing quite to that theory, but he did well to hold Sutton off albeit Sutton only really properly attacked him for 2 laps.
Yeah,
but it does well.
Sutton had places to make up to try and get to Hill. Hill had escaped fairly easily at the front from Jelly. And I think by the time that Sutton had got there, he realised, okay, it's only Hill in front of him. He's only giving away a couple of points at most. There's no real point in risking it.
No, agreed. But then obviously Hill would have probably got an A had it not been for the incident in race 3 where he forgot how to brake at a hairpin that is waterlogged. So yeah, B for Hill. B for Jelly, who I say did really well this weekend. Scored points in 2 of the 3. No, all 3 races, didn't he?
No, just 2 of the 3 races.
Okay.
And then Hill happened.
Yeah. Would have scored points in race 3.
Yeah.
Made the best of the weekend circumstances and got himself a podium. So happy days for Stephen Jelly. And then Morgan rather, the man who doesn't seem to have any luck at all. And to be honest, if you told me he'd been at BMW this year, I'd be struggling to remember a moment of any sort of greatness in that way. I know he's taken a podium.
Yeah, well, even at Knockhill this weekend, the only point I realised he was there was when he'd come out of the pits between Sutton and Jelly going, hang on, there's an extra BMW. Oh, yes, Morgan's here this weekend.
Yeah, it's not working well, particularly in his debut season at WSR, and this was another round to forget. It's a D for him. D's just keep on coming. Roy Butcher up next. I think we discussed him as part of your learn of the weekend, so I don't propose to repeat old ground there. I think you've said was pretty much covered there.
Yep.
Same for Ricky Collard, as I said in my surprise good. Again, cut and repeat all of that stuff there. Gamble, better weekend for him. Much improved. Be interesting to see if they run a 3-car team next year and if he's got the seat there. Hasn't really happened. This weekend was a bit more solid for him, and it's a C.
Yeah, it certainly was. I think a couple of finishes inside the top 10 really help, and hopefully it'll build his confidence. But we'll see how the season progresses.
Josh Cook B. I don't think we need to repeat much here, so you pretty much covered it off on your drive of the weekend.
It really quite quick.
Yeah, it's almost as if that Plowman has gone in and said, you just need to tweak, put this button on, put this button to here, and do that, this and that, and suddenly the car's a different.
He's just put a little Nos bottle in there, isn't he?
The car's a different animal, isn't it? And it's the same. Moffat and Edwards look a lot quicker than they have done in the past in that car as well. I think the potential is finally being unlocked. Far too late into the season, but a good weekend for Cook.
Yeah, someone that understands the car has come in and made it work for him.
C for Moffat, took a gamble in race 1. If that paid off, then he'd have been the cock of the walk because he'd have probably taken a win.
Yep.
Didn't happen. And then struggled for the rest of the weekend. Bit better in race 3. But
I do wonder whether in race 2, obviously coming from the back of the grid, starting from the pit lane almost, whether there was a little bit of underlying setup, not being able to finalise those changes.
Well, also as a driver, how can you have full faith in the car in those situations as well? So yeah, he's done all right. I think that's his season in a nutshell. He's done all right.
Yeah.
Roll on next year already to a degree for those guys.
Jade also gets to see this weekend some promising signs of pace. She took the risk to try and stay out in race 1 on the slick tyre. Had a little coming together with Sam Osborne, bit of a racing incident, but managed to get out of that fairly unscathed, although brought out the safety car. A positive weekend for her.
Points are coming.
Yeah, I really hope they are.
Starting off Team Hard garage then, DeLyon. I don't want to give his results normally give a lower score. We're giving his second weekend in the car and the conditions were horrendous. Yeah. We're going to go for a D. Not a great weekend.
I doubt he's ever driven a car in that sort of weather before. No. So yeah, we've been fairly easy on him this weekend.
Then Dan Lloyd gets a B, easily the best of the hard drives this week. I'll say easily actually, but
top scorer.
Yeah, top scorer of the hard drives this weekend. Could have had a podium on another day, but yeah, he's going to have to carry the torch for Team Hard following Thompson's exit.
Very much so.
And weekends like this will give promise for the last remaining rounds.
Boutel. Oh dear.
Sigh.
Yeah. The weekend where he could have taken opportunities to try and score some points, and if he'd got the tyre call right, if it had fallen nicely for him, then we could have seen him possibly in similar positions that we saw Patterson this weekend. But it just didn't quite play out, and I don't know whether that's a little bit of inexperience from his side or whether it's an engineering issue and something like that.
My concern is if he's not going to get points in a weekend like this, where literally anything is possible, where is he going to get points? And it's not even like he's close.
No.
Because you could level the same argument Edwards to a degree, but you say, well, actually look at results, he's not that far off. Boutel is, and it's a surprise. He's not. When he first came into the sport in the Mercedes, I thought he was one to watch, and it's just not really happened. Has it?
Hasn't kicked on at all, has he?
No, I'd agree with you on that. Right, next on the line is Patterson, who I thought had a really good weekend. 3 points finishes, looked really quick in race 3 in the wet conditions. I think he's. I don't want to say the line. I honestly think he's a star of the future. I think he's a race winner. I just hope he can stay in the sport for a long period of time.
Yeah, season high finish of 6th. He'll be very happy with that this weekend at his home event.
And done well in the Jack Sears, of course, to keep that going.
Yes.
Michael Crease, I really struggle to get excited about the Crease return. I'm sorry. I know everyone else loves him, and he's a great guy, and he's good for the fans and all that kind of stuff.
Very much so.
But I'm a bit underwhelmed at his return to the sport, and I was a bit underwhelmed this weekend.
There didn't seem to be any pace from him this weekend. I think we mentioned in the qualifying report that the only person that he out-qualified was Halstead.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, there's much more pace in there. He had a good year last year. There needs to be more. And I know he's getting used to the car, but he's now a fairly experienced driver within touring cars.
Agreed. Right, VXR guys, so we can rattle through these. Everyone gets.
Do you want to try PMR?
PMR, well, they're a bit Vauxhall. PMR guys, we can rattle through these because they all get a B. Everyone gets a B. Let's go them all off at once. Shall we? Double doesn't win the Jack Sears this weekend, but still leads the race at the top.
Yeah, very tight though.
Watson has got a podium to his name. Fantastic. An independence win by the same virtue. And Aaron Taylor-Swift has been back on the podium for the first time in God knows how many years as independent race winner in race number 2. So you can't really say fairer than that for the PMR this weekend.
It's a car that we questioned at the start of the season, and it's kind of making sense now.
And as you might go to smell the wafting of the humble pie that is going to be cooked, we'll take ours with cream. You might have ice cream.
Please, yeah.
They have shown how to expand a team, and I think they've done really well this year, and fair play to them.
Very, very much so. I'll be interested to see, 1, whether they keep 3 cars next year.
Yeah, me too.
2, whether they look to upgrade the car if they're going to do that.
Yep.
And 3, whether they keep the same sort of driver lineup. Because I think on the performance from this year, you might see a few other teams being interested in someone like Doble and Watson. Aaron Taylor-Smith has been in the sport long enough now that people know what they're going to get if they want to take him on. It'll be interesting to see if they use it as a platform or whether they build the team as it is.
Yeah, I've got a suspicion that Taylor Swift will go to somewhere surprising, but I will say that off air later with you.
Okay.
Then we go to the final of the weekend, which is Rob Huff, his return to the sport. It was never going to put up trees on a return to the series in the car he was in, but he scored points twice, did pretty well. It's a C overall. Be interesting what happens if he stays for the whole season. I don't think a top 10 finishes off the cards if he does stay, but we don't know what's going on at Hard in regards to the loss of Hamilton.
I certainly don't think he'll stay for the whole season. He might do another event, say Silverstone or something like that, but I doubt he'll be there for the last 3 rounds. But we'll see how it all plays out. As you say, the hard merry-go-round is something to be questioned, shall we say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's one. So then, getting on to our predictions for the weekend. Some success this weekend for both of us.
Yeah, not too bad.
Sutton taking pole at the very last moment with that 0.006 of a second lap quicker than Josh Cook means that I got a point for his pole position this weekend. Along with, obviously, Sutton and Hill both taking wins means that I've not done too badly. I was a little annoyed that I missed out on Jack Sears, but credit to Pearson.
Yeah.
I think we said it in the preview that we'll be sitting here going, Osborne or Pearson have won this weekend.
Yeah. Okay. And Camish was a bit of a bold call, but then my other bold call is also
yes, very much so.
For me then, obviously I also get a point because I went for Sutton on pole. I also for Sutton as a race winner and Hill as a race winner. Double in the Jack Sears, which looks a safe bet going into the weekend, but obviously Pearson going to Pierce. And then Turkington,
it's much the same as my Camish one, mate. So I completely get that. I was quite surprised how many winners we got this weekend on this side of things.
2 out of 4 ain't bad.
No, not at all.
3 out of 5 even.
Maths was never your strong point, was it?
No.
So then, general predictions for the weekend, and we didn't do too badly on this either.
No, 2 out of 4 for me, and I came close to others as well. Obviously, I had a Scott makes the podium.
Yep.
And obviously, Tom Ingram put paid to that, so thank you, Tom.
I think his team more put paid to that. I'm not sure he wanted it or ordered it to happen. It just so happened to be that way.
Yes, point.
I was celebrating at that
point C over podium. Okay? So that didn't get that one, but I did get PMR outscore hard.
Yeah, quite easily as well on that.
Yeah. Close to a BMW podium each race. Obviously, I had it in race 1 and 2, and then Hill happened in race 3. Although I don't think, to be fair, there would have been a podium for a BMW in race 3, in all honesty. But
no, the pace of Cook and Sutton pretty much summed that up, and Pearson was holding his own until obviously the overtake happened.
You were rather done over by the flags because Napa special shirt and cap for the weekend featured the Scottish flag, so that was over before.
As soon as we got to 15, I was desperately trying to find another, and then we went and walked past that show stand, and there were like 15 of them on their own. I was like, okay, he's taking the point for it this weekend.
Point for me then.
But yeah, with me, I got the safety car plenty of times this weekend.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, Knockhill is probably a little more safer to have that out. Scott finishing inside the top 10. I nearly had all 4 of them, and before the start of the weekend, I wasn't expecting Butcher to not get a top 10 out of the 4 of them.
Dark horse for the title.
And of course, I went for Patterson top scoring hard, and he only missed out by 7 points.
Yeah, you're unlucky. I'll be honest with you, and it's not just because I have a soft spot for Patterson. You are unlucky on that.
Yeah,
to be fair to
Lloyd did really well this weekend. Credit to him. But Patterson was there or thereabouts.
I'm lucky to give him the full version of Scottish flags at the track rather than just flags. But
yeah,
just thank you for doing the
I was still wrong.
You're still wrong, but your explanation has helped millions of people.
Thank you. All those millions that are watching.
I wish. Right. I think that pretty much sums up the podcast, video, driver grades, predictions, etc. Sam, do you have any final thoughts from the weekend that we just had, or any sort of final beginning thoughts of the weekend to come?
I'm going to plug. So if you haven't already, go back and watch our review of the weekend. We will have a vlog coming out from our trip up to Knockhill and the bits and pieces that we did around the touring car weekend. So do keep your eyes peeled for that. That will be on YouTube only. If you haven't...
That's a vlog. That is pretty...
Yeah. If you haven't subscribed already, please do go and subscribe. Get the bell on. Make sure you get notifications of whenever we release a podcast or video. And... the more the merrier. Please do comment.
Yeah, and if you want to leave a 5-star review on the podcast platforms, please do. We'll take a 4. Don't really want anything less than a 4, particularly. So if you could just, if you're at a 3, just find a way to bump us up to a 4, if you would.
Or make a suggestion.
No, make a 4 on a suggestion. We don't need less than a 4. We're fighting as it is. Do feel free to leave us an actual written review as well. If we find a nice one, we will read it out on the pod and give you a nice little shout out.
Yep.
My final thoughts are that you can give Sutton an A, you can give him an A-star, but the championship is done, and he's a 4-time champion, barring something ridiculous.
Stranger things have happened.
I don't think so.
But we'll see how the season folds out.
I do plan to do some research ahead of next preview, because I'm fairly confident that the points he has scored would have won you the championship in at least 80% of the last 10 years.
Okay, we'll see.
We'll see.
He has won a lot of races this season.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for watching. We'll be back again, as Russ said, with a preview for Donington, which again we will be off to. Just booked the tickets tonight, so hopefully if we get there, and we'll see you there.
Why is it doubt if we'll get there?
I don't know.
What are you saying will happen?
Hurricane?
Keep it light. Right, bye.